if we do this thing, is it actually going to move us closer to our stated goal and objective? What is the business case for doing it? So that's the first question you got to ask. That's the North Star. Now, a lot of people will say, oh no, your North Star really should be, your company purpose and the vision and your reason why. And I'm not saying that that isn't important, but if something could align perfectly to like your company purpose and mission, but if there's no business case for it, then you shouldn't do it.
Hey everybody, Roland, Frasier, and Ryan Dice here with another episode of Business Lunch, and we're back from the new year. This is our first one that we are recording after the new year. Ryan, how's your new year starting out for you?
It was great. It is great to be back. It's always nice to take extended breaks. I don't know about you though. The holidays for me are freaking exhausting. They're so exhausting. It's like waves of family crashing on my home. And I love them all. It is so nice when everybody's gone and I can just get back to normal. So it was great, but exhausting. What about you?
I have less family because of the non-4 kids part. So that alone to me, like just your home front without any extra family is probably pretty chaotic, but daggone, it's fun to watch kids, especially younger kids, around the holidays. It's just, it is kind of a special magical time. I really like that. And I saw a documentary that captured it very well that was created by Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds called Spirited. And it was quite good. It was a documentary done in a bit of a musical format. They may have taken some artistic license with the reality, but I thought it was pretty accurate.
Good day, sir. Yes. Good afternoon. I'm sorry. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yes.
It was good.
So if you guys haven't watched that Spirited, it was actually pretty cool. I would check it out. I got to believe it's like super discounted right now, right? Just like Christmas trees and Christmas ornaments and things like that. It's like Christmas specials.
It's probably just like on Netflix and you can just watch it. Yeah, watch it for free. But yeah, if my guess is you'll be like the one person watching it if you watch it around the time this episode drops.
Speaking of
everybody's
Netflix,
over being spirited.
Speaking of Netflix, I was shocked to read this morning that Reed Hastings has stepped down as the co-CEO after 20 years plus of shaping the vision of Netflix. That was kind of interesting to see. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it. I didn't get to read any of the details about it. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, he's been there for a while. I think you've got to acknowledge that Netflix is entering a different season, as a lot of companies do, where it's no longer about kind of establishing what's the business model going to be and, the vision of the company. I mean, it's pretty now set. This happens with a lot of companies, and you sort of at this point need to bring in the bankers a little bit and just say, we're going to be a very profitable company. We saw it happen at Microsoft. Google is going through that right now. I'm kind of surprised Facebook isn't, but same deal with Amazon, right? And so I'm not surprised.
Is Zuckerberg even 30 yet? I mean,
I don't know. He's just cruising for a bruising either way. I mean, he just seems like he can just take all the beatings that come his way. I don't know if that makes him, if he's going to go down in history as like the greatest CEO of all time, or like just someone who is just an utter masochist. But you got to respect it. But no, I'm not surprised that Reed Hastings, would step down, especially as just the climate and the environment. Like, if you've been doing this for a while, do you really want to go into another economic cycle like the one we're going through? I don't know. I'm not surprised.
I would love, I know we didn't schedule to talk about this today, but I would love to take a minute to talk about it. So if you think about some of the things that you mentioned and I mentioned, so you've got Netflix, one of the top tech companies, quite the visionary running that. Reed Hastings stepping down. You had Gates stepped out years ago from Microsoft, and some of the other folks that we mentioned as well. But you've also, Bezos, right? You've also got people that are still in, like Warren Buffett, and that are big personalities, and Elon Musk. Big personality. You mentioned Zuckerberg as well. And I think what people who are watching or listening might really enjoy is kind of thinking about, how do you take the vision that you've got and transfer that into the culture of the company so that hopefully the culture survives. Because you have people like Sarah Blakely at Spanx that was founder CEO, tried to find somebody, brought somebody in, didn't work out, came back in. You've got Apple with Jobs. Let's professionalize and bring in Scully long ago, right? And then things didn't work out and he came back and rescued. Or is it Howard Schultz from Starbucks, who handed over the reins for a few years and then had to come back and rescue the company. What do you think the difference is, or the essential qualities that the people that do this successfully to transfer kind of the reins over and not have to come back in and rescue? Have you ever thought about that? Because I think it'd be kind of interesting to talk about. I think that like everybody who's an entrepreneur, I think has a dream of some future point where they've hit that number that they want or whatever, and they can get their life back effectively. But how do you set that up to happen? And we know that if you're going to sell your company, it's going to be worth a whole lot more if you can do that. But you also see, we had a friend that we talked about that sold to a private equity company. The private equity company paid, a ton of money for the company. And then he came back in just basically 2 or 3 years later and bought it for, I think, a little over $200,000. And that happens frequently. I've seen that a lot lately. What do you think is the thing that everybody who is here in the audience, or the things that they should be thinking about to maintain a true legacy of the vision that's created the success in their company?
I think it comes down to really scaling decision-making. Mm-hmm. If you're going to sum it up and it's kind of, and I want to make sure that we simplify this without being overly simplistic to the point that it's no longer accurate or helpful, because there's obviously, the answer is a lot, right? There's a lot that goes into it. But I think that what we're really trying to pass down as founders, entrepreneurial leaders, what we would really like to have happen is for kind of the framework that we pass ideas and opportunities through. Our own framework, our own way of thinking, we would sort of like to leave that as an asset that others would also kind of pass it through this same framework and these same filters for as long as it really becomes helpful. And I think very often we will leave values, and we might even leave some semblance of what somebody might call a culture, whatever that really means. And there's lots of definitions of that. But what isn't left behind is a framework for decision making. And so I know when we're working with Founders Board members, one of the last things that we do, because I think it's one of the most important things to automate, is how do you automate and scale decision making? Because I think at the end of the day, companies are going to scale at the rate of good decisions. Yep. Like, period. That's companies going to scale at the rate of good decision making. And so the question that I think to ask is, well, how are good decisions made? And if as a leader, an entrepreneur, a founder, you have a company that's grown, it's probably because you've made pretty consistently good decisions. And when you've been wrong, you saw that it was wrong, ran it back through a decision filter, and found that it wasn't. Here's where I was off a little bit. And so I believe, we teach it comes down to 4 areas, and I can kind of talk through all 4 of those if you want to, and maybe it'll help some folks out. You think that's good?
Yeah, let's do it in the context of launching a new product that we think will help us be competitive against some of the upstarts that are coming up that might be a little bit of a threat to us that we've identified, that we also want to be careful not to become a Me Too product, like a just, hey, everybody's doing it, let's do it, so we end up in a race to the bottom. Let's do it in that framework so that maybe people can say, okay, well, maybe I'm not launching a new product, but I'm thinking about selling, or I'm thinking about a key hire, or I'm thinking about an investment in this, or a redirect, or something like that. Then we can give some context around the model and say how we would approach each of the aspects of it. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I love it. Because all these things, you're right, whether it's making a key hire, or should we pursue the strategic partnership? Should we launch this new division or product line? All of these are the kinds of decisions that make and break companies. Should we update our branding even? Like, there's some things like that. So yeah, in my experience, and if you're, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Before we start, I'd just like to say, because this is being recorded, relatively soon into the new year, we're coming up on February as we record this of 23. One thing that I look at as a pre-decision filter so that I know what I'm even going to focus on at all is what are the things that I no longer want to do? What are the things that worked well that I'm excited about and I think hold the biggest prospect for getting me closer to my ultimate things I want, my goals, and I double down on those. And then what are the things that I don't want to let go of because they are supporting me in moving towards the things I'm doubling down on? And I generally dial those back by 50%. So it's kind of a in the pre-decision sorting hat kind of way. It's like these things I don't enjoy and they don't take me towards my goal, or I enjoy and they don't take me towards my goal. They're gone. The things that I enjoy that are moving me towards my goals, I'm doubling down on. And then to free more time up, I'm also going to cut in half the things that I don't want to let go, but I would otherwise probably let go, that are helping me support, fund, have the relationships, whatever, to support the doubling down. And so I think that can be a helpful starting point to just say, where, like, I can take all these things and just move them out of the way. These things I'm going to shrink down a little bit, and these things I'm going to expand on, and then apply that filter to that. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, so when we're, again, working with founders, board members, other clients to kind of map, we call it a clarity compass. And so if you want to visualize a compass with a north, a south, an east, and a west, for us, the North Star, the north point is it going to get us closer to our 3-year target? So what is our goal? What is our business objective? And I think this is so important, and it aligns with everything you just said, right? If we do this thing, is it actually going to move us closer to our stated goal and objective? What is the business case for doing it? So that's the first question you got to ask. That's the North Star. Now, a lot of people will say, oh no, your North Star really should be, your company purpose and the vision and your reason why. And I'm not saying that isn't important, but if something could align perfectly to like your company purpose and mission, but if there's no business case for it, then you shouldn't do it. Right? There's enough opportunities out there. So the first thing, kind of the north, is just what's our 3-year target, but just what's your business goal that you want to achieve? That's kind of the first filter. Is it going to get us closer to that? If the answer is yes, then we're going to say, okay, does this align to our company purpose? And company purpose, I think that speaks a bit to what you were alluding to as well. So the company purpose could just be what really gets us excited in the morning. Yeah. What makes us want to, jump out of bed? What is the kind of that galvanizing force, that thing that draws, talent to us, that excites our customer base, that gets us excited, that is more the customer case. So what we're balancing there is the business case and the customer case. And that's where it begins. And that's kind of that north-south. And really your purpose should be pushing you towards your goal. But I think anytime we're evaluating just about anything, those are the two initial filters. Does it get us closer to what we want? Which incidentally assumes that you know what you want. So you have to do that. You've got to do the work of that.
Yeah.
Totally different thing. And it also needs to assume that you've in some way codified your company purpose. Your Simon Sinek calls it your why. So let's assume that's there. Those are the first two filters. Now, that's pretty table stakes, right? That's pretty basic level stuff. Where companies get off the mark, especially when the visionary founder leaves, is they either begin behaving in a way that no longer aligns with the company's core values. And look, core values, everybody's heard about them. Most companies have them, but most of us don't use it as a framework for decision making. And so a simple question to ask is, okay, great. Yep, we believe this is going to get us closer to our company goals. Yep, it aligns with our company purpose. But is this going to cause us to behave in a way that is, outside of our values? And that doesn't necessarily have to mean that, you're like violating the law or doing anything immoral. But like, I know there's plenty of companies, like take Southwest Airlines, which they've had their own fair share of issues as of this recording, but one of their values is fun, right? So if they were going to take on a project, a key initiative, a new product line that wasn't fun at all, and there was no way to inject fun into it, there could be nothing immoral or unethical about it. But if it's not fun, or if it's not, low cost, then it would be a violation of their values. And so that's kind of the third filter. We kind of plot that on the east side. And then west, and this is the part that everybody forgets about, us included. And when I think about when we've really screwed up, right? When we've, taken on a project that was like, that was a bad call. It's when it violated one of our strategic anchors. And strategic anchors are just kind of a fancy pants word for what are your competitive advantages, right? What is that set, that collection of actions and activities and resources that when combined reinforce some true competitive advantage? These are the things that you're truly better at than your competition. And I think it's also important to know, what do you suck at? What are your anti-anchors? And so when businesses get off track, it's when they violate, and I've seen this happen more times than not. They're like, yep, it gets close to our goals. Yep, it aligns with our company purpose. Woo, we're excited, we're juiced. No issues with the values, let's do it. And they don't ask the question, yeah, but are we playing to a known strength? Or are we potentially playing to a known weakness? That's the part that they don't consider. And you see this especially when founders leave and there's nobody there to say, hey, we don't actually know how to do that. That's not actually baked into the DNA of what we do. And so it doesn't mean that you can't do that. It just means that you need to acknowledge that anchor doesn't exist. So we either need to develop it, which can happen through training, through hiring the right consultants. It can happen through hiring the right people, or we can acquire it. Maybe we need to do an acqui-hire. Maybe we just need to go out and buy it and acquire that component. But in my experience, personally, and watching our clients, when bad decisions get made and when companies start to kind of, go down a little bit, it's because they violate one of those four areas. They either over-index to the business case and forget the customer case. They over-index to values and forget strategic anchors, or something in between. So we have, anytime there's a meeting, these are all plotted for us on a worksheet, a single one-page worksheet. We call it a clarity compass. And at any meeting, anytime a question comes up, if somebody's like, should we do this? My question is always, have we run it through our clarity compass yet? And we have a discussion about it. And when you have a team who is using that and making decisions as you would or better, because they've got your way of thinking and they also have their context, that's when I think it's safe to step away, and you can do it with context. Without that, I think it's really dangerous.
Yeah, I think I remember the interviews with Steve Jobs talking about when he was stepping down and Tim Cook was coming in, and he did it interestingly. Is it Eves? I forget his last name. That was the designer guy that he worked with so much, but it was basicely
Johnny Ive. I think it's Ive, but I've also heard it pronounced Eves.
So
I don't know.
Steve had really been the driving vision for the company, and then passed it down to two people that he had been with for years and years and years, who he had helped them to completely understand his clarity compass for Apple and participate in it to the extent that he would allow that, because he was pretty direct guy and knew what he wanted. But I thought I think that's a good example that we can use, because when you have a tool like the Clarity Compass, and that is helping to document the process and really pull together some disparate things like values and goals and such, that then having the ability to transfer the documented process to the key people who are going to be the successors is so critical. And I thought it was, his example to me is really interesting, because there wasn't one person that could do that, because Apple is a combination of amazing style and design, which is a completely different set of personality traits than the person who is like, I got the numbers and I've got the I guess the more of the it's kind of a qualitative and quantitative side in that case. And so for you guys that are thinking about, how do I potentially step away from the company and hopefully not have to come back to it to rescue it like so many people have? How do I make investments that are good and don't make the mistakes that private equity makes pretty regularly, where they make a big investment and then it's worth a fraction later and the founders come back and buy it back again? That having the process of documenting it like we do in the scalable operating system for our founders board people and such through Clarity Compass and some of the other tools there, and pick the people who are aligned with the skills that you feel are going to be necessary and complementary to your Clarity Compass. Because if you don't have buy-in on your vision there, then from the people who are going to take over, they're going to get off course. And keep in mind that like it's the little tiny initial off courses that can have over time a significant variance from the place that you ultimately wanted to go. And so the buy-in, the documentation, followed by the careful selection of the people who have the character traits that will be complementary to the process and values, followed by time investing in those people to bring them along and merge the Clarity Compass that you have created for the company with the values and experience of those other people. And then a monitoring system to be sure that you stay on course, because a compass, keep in mind, is always pointing in the direction of north, ideally, right? So what is it tools-wise, process-wise, Ryan, that you think is best for helping people once they've got all those three things that we just talked about in place to stay on track?
Well, so from a practical thing, what we do, we're still doing quarterly sprint planning, quarterly strategic planning. And so once a quarter, I'm going to get, have a really good look at what are the things and the decisions that are being made. Even if, because it's at the quarterly sprint planning meetings where the key initiatives, those main projects for that quarter are going to be selected. The theme is going to be selected. So it's pretty easy, even if I don't attend that meeting. And I'm not sitting in the quarterly sprint plans of all of the businesses that are in our portfolio, but it's easy enough if I've got the Clarity Compass to know, did they actually use the Clarity Compass to inform these key initiatives? Or am I looking at it and saying like, this key initiative does not align with the strategic anchor? This key initiative, I'm really worried about it. So that's an easy way to do it every 90 days. It's really, though, where it's going to show up over time is in performance. It is going to show up over time in performance. Now, you don't want it to get that bad, but at some point when you step away, you're not checking in every 90 days. You're just not. Yeah. But if you can see that the company is not growing as fast as it should, if it's no longer hitting its goals, that's almost always going to have something to do with the decisions that are being made. And so to look at what decisions are being made, what are we doing and why? And then to just remind everybody, are we going through this? That's where it's going to show up. It's going to show up in results. If you want to be more proactive in the beginning while you're doing the handoff, because I love what you said, you don't hand this off to a one person. You're going to hand this off to a leadership team. And then what needs to happen is you're there leading the team, you're driving that in, and eventually you might replace yourself with an operator or bring in another CEO. You take what we call exit number 3. You're exiting the org chart. You're sitting on the board. And so perhaps once a quarter, when you're doing your board meeting, you can evaluate results. And if you see that the results are off, ask what decisions were made or not made. And then if you find that they're actively referring to the Clarity Compass, they're using it. If they're not, they're like, oh, we felt like we needed to do it because the competition did it. That's not how we make decisions here. We don't make decisions to keep up with the competition. Yeah. And it is the reason that a lot of companies get off track. It's why they're in reactive mode, not strategic mode. The Clarity Compass keeps it strategic.
So let's run now. You can assume the Clarity Compass of your choice, but let's look at the process now of the two people who are key members of the team have come to us and said, hey, there's a couple of companies that are doing some things that we think are going to be where the future is for our product or service. And we feel that it's a threat that we should address. We believe that we should launch some new products to compete with that. Now, in that fact pattern, what do we do to actually be sure that that's the right decision?
Yeah, so I think step 1 is great. Love it. Is this going to get us closer to our company goals? Because our goal is not simply to just chase the competition or do what they do. We've established our own goals, and our goals are going to be stated in terms of revenue, profitability, and total enterprise value, right? So from a numbers perspective, does doing this get us close to our goals? Yes or no? And the answer could be, it certainly. Yeah. Okay, great. Amazing. does it align with our company's stated purpose? So, we've got, our company purpose is to, have this, to produce this result on behalf of our customers. And so the company purpose is always stated in a customer-centric type way. So by implementing this, is it going to be good for our customers? Is it something they want?
So let's see how this would have worked for the Blockbuster board when Netflix was upstarting and doing this direct mail DVD rental business, but we're in the retail store video cassette, and DVDs aren't really a thing yet, but my goodness, there's a ton of demand for our VHS tape rentals. We look at that and we say, well, these guys came, maybe, it's like this upstart Reed came to us, who works within our Blockbuster company, and said that there's these other people doing this DVD thing, and we should do it too. If we do it, it could make us some money, way less money than we're making from our retail stores. How would we know, or could we, that might be the right move?
So again, there's the business case. Do we feel this will drive growth? Let's assume the answer was yes, we did before. Now we're going to go to the customer case. And therein lies, I think, the problem that most businesses have and make, the mistake they make, is they define themselves by the way they sell their product or service, not the people they sell. They either define themselves by the thing they sell or the way they sell it, not the who they serve. So if Blockbuster defines themselves as, we are a retailer, like we are a retail brick and mortar renter of entertainment, like that is what we do. We're not defining ourselves by the people we serve. We're defining, our business model is we're retail. So they might say, well, no, it doesn't align with our model, right? Well, wait, that's not the question we're asking. We're asking, what's the customer case? And let's say that at Blockbuster, what we want to provide is the best entertainment at the fairest price, as conveniently as possible. Right. Now, I'm not saying that was theirs. I don't know. But you could argue at one point in time that if you've got this multi-location model, I can be anywhere, it's a safe, clean environment, then, and if that's what it is, I'd say this checks all those boxes at an even better level.
Right.
Not only should we do, I would argue we must do this because it aligns with our company purpose. It's the next phase of our company purpose. It's going to be hard. I don't know what this means for our retail, but again, we don't define our business by what we sell or the way we sell it. We define it by who we serve. And this is what they're going to want, because this is all those things, but better. So we got to talk about, yes, it passes the second test, right? It passes the yes test.
I'm sorry. We got the financial goal test. Then we have the values test. And then what else?
Well, we got the purpose test. So the business case and the customer case. Now we've got the values test. So is there any, deviation from our core values? Again, I don't know Blockbusters, what their core values were. Let's say one of them was innovation, which a lot of companies are. They'd be like, yep, this is innovating. I don't know if it is. Maybe the value
a lot of them say it, few of them
consumer. I know, right? And so, and I also believe that value should speak to behavior, but that's a different kind of animal. So let's say it passes the values test. Then we go over to strategic anchors, right? And it's like, what is Blockbuster strategic anchors? Well, let's say one of them is they've got deals with all the movie studios, because they did, right? They had direct deals with the movie studios, so they got access first. So that's one of them. The second one is their retail presence and footprint. The third might be brand. Go all in all, and one thing that you won't find likely is rental by mail or any type of online. Streaming wasn't really a factor at this point, so let's keep it simple. So they might look at it and go, we got a real problem here, right? Because we don't know how to do this. It's not one of our strategic anchors. But if you're a good leader, saying it doesn't fit does not mean an immediate no. Then you need to ask the question, okay, what would need to be true for this to be a yes? Because it fits the other three. So it's a worthy endeavor, but we don't enter into it blindly. You're stupid to ignore it because you don't know how to do it, but you're also foolish to just dive into it head first because you think you should and you're just that noble and good, right? No, it passed the first three. It didn't pass the fourth. It's something we should do now. Can we? What must be true so that we're able to do that? And I think looking back on it, the obvious answer was buy Netflix.
Right. Which they had the opportunity to do and said no.
It was probably the obvious answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
buy it.
That question to me is one of the most powerful questions that you can ask. What would have to be true for this thing to be a go? I think that's really, really powerful. And it goes to one of the things that we'll talk about in another episode, which is how can I increase my business 400%? What would have to be true for me to be able to do that? And those exercises and those hypotheticals can be very, very powerful. But and a question that could have saved potentially Blockbuster from being relegated to, I think they have a single store in Alaska at some, it may have even closed now, but
I think they still do.
That's pretty cool. I love this line of thought around how do you create succession in your business that will be true to the legacy that you've created, but also be adaptive to the future. And so I like the framework of the Clarity Compass and the things we talked about today. Would love to hear what you guys think about this stuff too. So if you want, you can throw us a comment, or you can even, Ryan, what is it? Is it businesslunch.com /
It's businesslunchpodcast.com / ask.
Okay. We do own businesslunch.com, but for some reason we don't use that. So we'll have to work on that for you guys. But businesslunchpodcast.com / ask. And we'd love to hear any questions you've got about this, and we will answer those on another episode. And I hope that this was helpful for you guys. If you found this helpful, would love for you to share it with a friend and say, hey, I know that you own a business, or you've been talking about these challenges potentially of succession, or you're thinking about maybe you'd like to have a higher quality of life and get more time with the family, or to pursue other goals or another shiny object that you want to chase, which is probably the most likely for an entrepreneur. And I listened to this really cool podcast that where they talked about it. So if that's something that you found was helpful for you, let us know, tell a friend, and we appreciate you sharing this time with us on Business Lunch, and we'll see you next time.